What is up, guys? It is Dillo, and this is not a podcast today, but this is just a little bit of a video, like a little opinion video, prediction video. Just gonna be covering the three title fights for now. I might extend this to the full main card of events after I'm done this type of thing, or I might even do full like undercards as well. But for right now, I'm just doing the three title fights for UFC 251. And I know ever since the news broke out about Masvidal getting the title shot against Usman, there's been like a lot of people just kind of counting Masvidal out. But I've seen some people just so confident that Masvidal's gonna take it. So I kind of just wanted to raise the question in the comments and see what people are thinking. You know, what people think is gonna happen come fight night. I think Jorge has the ability to end it. He's got knockout punches, and he's just all about pressure. And he could put Usman away, but Usman's a tough guy. He showed that in the Kobe fight. Now we don't know exactly how hard Kobe hits, so that's kind of like a terrible comparison, I guess. But we do know that he went all 5 rounds with Kobe. Did not try to take him down once, and it was a back and forth affair of those two just striking. Now, how he's going to do against a completely pure striker in that type of affair, I don't know. But we obviously know that Usman is probably going to be using his wrestling. And that's the thing. A lot of people are counting out Masvidal's wrestling. He's working with people like Bo Nickel, who is an absolute, just incredible collegiate wrestler. A big guy, too. So I do think that Jorge has a chance of at least making it competitive, but in my opinion, I think Usman is going to wrestle fuck him to a decision. I don't think it's going to be as dominant as it is. I truly think the fight might end up competitive, but I do have a secondary prediction. It's the one I put my money on. I put about $100 on Jorge winning by KO. Doesn't matter what round, just he has to win by KO. But yeah, my first prediction obviously is Usman winning. My bet prediction, my money prediction, because I love to bet on the underdog, like always when I'm betting. I'm a fucking idiot. I don't bet often, so obviously, if I did, then I'd be fucking broke because I bet on the underdog a lot. But I'm betting on Jorge with my money. But yeah, I think Usman's gonna take it just because Jorge's taking this on 6 days' notice. Plus his trainer and his cornerman actually he tested positive for COVID-19 and couldn't go with. So he has no cornerman right now. Like I said, he's taking it on 6 days' notice. Obviously, that doesn't bother people like Jorge, but the not really having a preparation and having to cut all this weight in this much time and not having his coach there with him is probably a huge setback. A lot of people came into this when the fight was announced thinking, oh, Jorge is not, he's not going to make weight. He's not prepared at all. And that's the thing. A lot of people are forgetting that this fight, like, it was supposed to happen originally before Gilbert Burns even beat Tyron Woodley. They had this fight in talks for a while leading up to this moment. And obviously everybody who followed the MMA community knows what happens. Jorge got into negotiations with the UFC, wanted more money. They weren't willing to give him more money for that, and that's fair. I kind of think he's worth the money, but Dana's Dana, and you're never gonna change Dana. So, he just, he kept trying to negotiate with the UFC, and eventually they just didn't come to an agreement. And obviously, he was doing all that shit on Twitter and speaking out against fighter pay, and trying to be a big advocate for fighter pay. And then the Gilbert Burns fight happened. He just absolutely dominated Tyron Woodley from post to fucking fence, and it was just a clear cut decision who the next contender was going to be if Jorge did not want to take the fight. Obviously it was going to be Gilbert. Gilbert's on a fucking tear. He's got a couple knockouts and a couple finishes. He just completely dominated the former champion and number one contender in Tyron Woodley. So obviously he was the next guy. So I think when Gilbert kind of got announced, it made people forget that Jorge has probably been training this whole time for Usman. like knowing that something like this is probably going to happen and he's going to have to step in, and soon enough the UFC is going to have to nut up or shut up and just give him the money. And it happened. I feel bad for Gilbert Burns. Obviously, you don't want shit like that to happen to somebody like Gilbert Burns. He's such a nice guy, an absolute killer too. And I was kind of excited for that fight. Obviously it wasn't the biggest one on paper. If you look at the names, you're going to see Usman. All right, I kind of know that guy. That's the guy who beat up Kobe Covington. But then you're going to see Gilbert Burns, and you're not going to really know who that is. So, honestly, yeah, I feel for Gilbert, but I think this was the best one, like the best option for the UFC, considering a lot of people were thinking because of the Gilbert Burns fight that the pay per view wasn't going to sell much, even with Max and Volk on the card and Yan and Aldo on the card, which I'll get to in a bit. But just to end all discussion about this fight, I'm going with Usman as my actual prediction. Obviously, that's the one to go with. And my money is on Jorge KOing it for the surprise. But yeah, my prediction is Usman, obviously. I think anybody who knows anything about MMA will know that Usman is going to fucking completely dominate this contest. Like I said, it has a very high chance of being a competitive fight. Masvidal's a complete dog. He's been in the game for a long time too, and there's been a lot of argue about his record. He's 35-13. A lot of people treat that like he's absolute trash. He's not. There's a lot of fighters with double-digit losses in the UFC. That just means they're veterans. Like I said, Masvidal's been doing this for nearly fucking 20 years, man. He's got 48 fights to his name, man. He started fighting around like 19 years old when he was doing shit with Kimbo and stuff. Then he got into professional fighting with like shark fights and shit. And that was where one of his first losses came against Paul Daly. One of the many losses that people argue could have went to him. And honestly, if you watch the fight back, yeah, you could have made the decision for him, even in the Mayo one. So, a lot of people were also talking shit about a guy who's 35-13, and is a journeyman, as everybody says. But yeah, I'm excited for this fight. He has a chance of making it competitive, and he does have a chance to knock Usman out, but I just don't see it happening. I hope it happens for the sake of my money, but I just don't see it happening. The next fight is Max and Volk. This is a rematch from a couple fights ago. I believe UFC 241, right? It happened at UFC 241, and did it? I probably forgot which fucking UFC it happened at. I'm fucking fried as shit as recording this, so my brain's not all there, and I don't want to search it up right now. I don't want to do all the typey thing because my keyboard's loud. So this is a rematch from a fight that happened before, and a lot of people were saying that Max won a couple rounds. And, if you didn't watch the fight back recently, I guess you could probably say that he did. But if you watched the fight recently, I know it might be recency bias, but I genuinely think that the first time around, Volk dominated Max all 5 rounds. And unless Max is in like a complete different level now, he just ascended, 1,000 times in just a couple months. I don't see Max taking this. Unless he knocks Volk out or something. I see Volk doing the same shit over again, utilizing his wrestling and his leg kicks and just, closing in the pocket because he's the shorter fighter. But if Max can just stuff all that and, keep his range, because Max is a taller fighter. He's pretty fucking tall for a featherweight. Then I think that he might have a chance. But I don't know, just after watching the first fight, if the same Max shows up, or a Max similar to that shows up, I think Volkanovski's going to get his first title defense, and all questions are going to be gone whether Max had a chance to take the belt back or not. Obviously, if there's a different person in the championship spot other than Volk, Max might have a chance, but right now, I don't see Max taking out Volk. I think Volk's going to win that by decision, because I don't see Volk knocking out Max either. Max has got a chin on him. Volk hits hard, and that's a fact. Volk's really powerful, and This is the same joke as oh, did you know that Henry Cejudo had a gold medal in wrestling? Did you guys know that Alexander Volkanovski is or used to be a rugby player that was over 200 pounds? Yes, yes, we know. So there's that. Like, he's got so much power because of that. But I just don't see him knocking out Max, because for some reason Max has got a fucking unearthly chin. He just can take and take and take and take and take. He can take the hardest shots and still keep coming. It's weird. But yeah, I think I'm going to go with Volkanovski on this one. I'm not going to count Max out because, like I said, Max is a game fighter, and I expect fireworks from this one. I expect an absolute dogfight from this one. I'm excited for this one, actually. This is probably the fight I am the most hyped about on the card. A lot of people are more hyped about the, Masvidal and Usman fight now. I'm excited about that fight, but I am the most hyped about Max and Volk. And the close second is the bantamweight title fight that's actually next. But yeah, no, Max and Volk is the fight I'm probably the most excited for, because whenever Max shows up, man, it's always a dog fight. 110% always a dog fight with him. So, I'm excited for it. So I'm going with Volk on this one, but I'm expecting fireworks. I'm excited for it. So, I hope everyone else is excited, just as excited as I am for it, honestly. There's plenty of fights on this card that are amazing, but just especially the 3 title fights that are happening is just amazing. They're incredible fights, and anybody watching this that hasn't watched UFC before, if you guys want a good card to tune in on for the first time ever, since there's really no sports going on and there's really nothing else to watch other than reruns of shows, because let's be honest, other than fucking talk shows and shit, there really isn't any new episodes of anything happening. So if you want something to watch on Saturday night, I recommend picking up the pay-per-view for UFC 251, or just check out those special little streams that we all fucking check out. And yeah, just check out UFC 251, tune in for the main card, and just enjoy, because I expect absolute fireworks, especially with this last fight. Well, not the last fight, but the last title fight on the card. It's the first title fight that's going to happen on the main card, and it's a vacant bantamweight title fight between Peter Yan, which is he's a Russian fighter. He's undefeated. He's on an absolute fucking spree right now. He's just got incredible knockout power. I see him taking this, but in the challenger corner, or the other corner that wants the belt, is the legend, the man, the myth, the GOAT, the featherweight GOAT, Jose Aldo, man. One of my favorite fighters of all time, and this one was the hardest I had to choose, because I want to say, Yan's gonna knock Aldo out, or he's just gonna dominate it, but I don't know, man. Aldo looked really good in his last fight against Marlon Moraes. I really, really think he might end up edging out a decision on this one, unless Peter Yan knocks him out. But that's the thing, because Peter Yan is so young. He's on a absolute blazing trail, and he's not bad himself. He has the chance of taking this by decision as well. And I think this is going to be like an absolute explosion of a fight. It's going to be technical. It's going to be tactical. It's going to be just constant pace, like constant fast pace. And I don't know. I don't know who to pick, honestly. My heart wants to go with like Aldo, because I love Aldo, but my brain, my knowledge wants to go with Yan. But at the same time, my knowledge is also arguing with me, because it's like, yeah, but there's also chances for Aldo to win. So out of the 3 title fights on this card, this one is the hardest, like the fucking hardest to predict. I don't know what I'm going to be going with here, because I do believe that all 3 of these title fights are going to end up by decision. That's just what I feel. I don't think anyone's going to end up finished on these 3 title fights, but this last one, this bantamweight title fight, is the hardest to predict, because I love both of these guys. I see plenty of ways that both of these guys can win, because like I said, Peter Yan is young. This is a perfect weight for him, but Aldo's looked incredibly good at bantamweight in his first fight, and I don't know, he just seems to be very rejuvenated during this weight cut and everything, very in the zone. But that just could be him talking. I don't know, man. He's also very skillful. He's got a lot of power. He's the GOAT. He's got a lot of experience under his belt too, so he knows how to deal with a lot of situations. I don't know who to pick. But if I were a betting man that wanted to be safe, I would probably go with Peter Yan. Just because he's the younger one, he's got more spring in his chicken, and he's got the power to probably put Aldo away. Even if it ends by decision, I just think, it ends by decision where it's a competitive fight, but the reason why it gets edged out is because Yan dropped Aldo a couple times during the fight. I see it happening. So I don't think Yan is going to knock him out for the win. I think it's going to be a decision. I think it's going to be a competitive fight. But it's really hard for me to say because, like I said, as I'm saying this, I'm still conflicted with myself. But I think that Peter Yan's going to take it. It's going to be his night. He's going to become the new bantamweight champion. And then Aljo's going to have a tough time going through that. But I honestly want to see Aljo become the champ. So I honestly don't care who wins that fight. I just want to see Aljo step up. I would be happy to see Aldo win, but like I said, my little knowledgeable self is going to go with Peter Yan. I could cover the other fights on this card. I would cover the Rose and Andrade fight again. They're fighting again. It's a rematch from their title fight last year in Brazil, which ended very heartbreakingly for me. God, Rose looked so good in that last fight against Andrade. She was completely piecing her up, using her wrestling and her grappling and everything. And then they got into the clinch and shit. And I think it got to the ground and Rose held onto an arm bar. And it happened twice. This first time it happened, Andrade slammed Rose, and I don't know. I had this sixth sense in me. I was like, that's not gonna last. Like, Rose should not get comfortable. But it happened again. It happened again. Like I think the next round or something like that. And that time she got fucking dunked on her head, nearly killed, and lost her belt. So I was really upset. So I could talk about that. But I will talk about that on Sunday with hopefully a couple of friends on the podcast. And I'll tell you guys about the fights and what I thought of them and all the results. And for those who missed, I will give brief rundowns of everything. So anyway, I hope you guys tune into the podcast on, I believe Monday will be when I'm uploading it, maybe Monday night. And yeah, just leave in the comments. What do you guys think is going to happen in these 3 title fights? And if you guys want, even leave your predictions for the rest of the fights on the card. I would actually be interested to see what you guys think. Even the prelims, man, I'm excited to see what you guys think of the lower end fighters, the ones that are lesser known. I'm one of those guys that ends up watching the prelims. I love watching the prelims. You always end up seeing some decent fights, even with some lesser tier fighters. And I just love watching the prelims. So if you're an MMA fan, even if you're not a hardcore guy, just even once try watching the prelims. I recommend it because it might be your lucky night. You might get a fucking firework of a fight. Or it could be your unlucky night and you get all stinkers. But the prelims also have a mixed match of good and bad fights, and it's always fun to watch. So if you're a fan of MMA in general, you don't have to be a hardcore guy. I recommend watching the prelims. But yeah, for anyone who is interested in watching some sports on Saturday night, because I don't think there's going to be many sports going on Saturday night. I know that a lot of sports are in their season type thing, figuring things out still because of the COVID virus. So if you have nothing to watch on Saturday night and you guys want to get the boys together or the girls together and you want to party, I recommend picking up the UFC 251 pay-per-view on ESPN Plus or the UFC Fight Pass app. Or if you have satellite or cable, you could probably find it on your cable provider. So just check it out there. Or like I said, you could just check out those, cool little pay-per-views that, the nice fellow folks at the internet leave out for us. But yeah, if you guys want some awesome MMA action and you want to see some fucking awesome fights this weekend, go check out the UFC 251 pay-per-view. Also on the podcast this week on Sunday, we'll be talking about Titan FC and what happened, and maybe even talk about some Polaris. But I might be recording the podcast while Polaris is going on, so we'll see. But we'll be talking about Titan FC for sure, or at least I'll be talking about Titan FC for sure. I'll also be reviewing UFC 251 after it's done. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the little predictions video. Leave a like down below and a comment of what you guys think is going to happen in the fights, who you think is going to win, how it's going to go, what round, or if it's a decision, what's the score. Tell me what you guys think. And don't forget to subscribe and check out the